All right. Hey, this is Argent Alpha Unscripted. It's Tuesday, May 12th. We've got Brandon Day with us. And Brandon, thanks for joining us today. I
Yeah,
want to hear more about your story and your path to the field you're working in.
sure.
I think I've heard of applied neurology or applied neuroscience, but the more I dig into it since you and I met, I've just like really interested. Turned my son onto it, who's had some issues with his neck and back, and so
Mhm.
I'm really looking forward to it. But w one thing before we get going for everybody, we just got to go back to this screen right here. Um,
Yes,
because I mean, not many guys can claim that they've been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So before we get in, because
true.
I mean, we all love sports. This is pretty cool, but just give us a little bit of background about what led to that photo, and then we'll get into the subject matter. And again, thanks for joining
Sure.
today too. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Scott. And man, it was y- you say it's pretty rare and I actually, looked into it. I'm from Montana. Been in Arizona for 13 years now, but I grew up in Montana and we call it small town Montana because although it's 1,000 miles from corner to corner, there are less than, well, maybe just over 1 million people now at this point. Took us 30 years to get from 900,000 to 1 million. Damn you, Yellowstone. That show, you guys seen that show? It was
Oh
so
yeah.
good. So good. Not great for our keeping it small town. But anyway, the Sports Illustrated, when I was on the cover in 2007, I became the third person, I believe, third or fourth. I could never figure out who the fourth one was, but third person from Montana to ever be on the cover. So it was me. You guys remember Ryan Leaf? Not our most shining moment. Although he's doing better. He's doing better. He's back home now. And then Evil Knievel is the other one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So interesting company, but there was just three of us from Montana. Like you said, it's pretty rare thing, and it's not something that going to a small college in Helena, Montana, I thought that um, would ever be like a thing that happened. But here we are. So what had actually happened was I played at Carroll College, like I said, which is an NAIA school. If y'all aren't familiar with the NAIA, it's a different organization than the NCAA. It's mostly made up of small, private, religiously affiliated colleges around the country. There's something around like 160 um, colleges around the country, and we get lumped in with like Division II in the NCAA as far as like competition goes, size of players, that kind of stuff. So we were small. Not a lot of big endowments, anything like that. Didn't get a lot of media attention. But when I went there, and this will kind of play into the what I do now, this story a little bit. I uh, was at the tail end of a four-peat national championship. My true freshman year, I got to play in my first national championship in '05. We won that one. We got back twice more, and we won another one in 2007. The national championship, the bid was at a small place in Tennessee called Savannah, Tennessee. We've never heard of that. Not that surprised. They had a paper mill that shut down in like the 80s, and since then it's been almost a ghost town. But they got the bid for the NAI National Championship, so we kept going back. And it's a wonderful place. Like Tennessee's awesome. It's in small town Tennessee, even more awesome. So anyway, we played on this high school field that it had rained for 3 or 4 days leading up to the game. And they had just put new sod on it and it wasn't draining. So we got to this field and it was just a it was a lake. Like there was 3 inches of standing water on the sideline. And so it's like 40 degrees, little windy, rain, we're soaking wet. It was so cold. I mean, I played in like 50 below zero, but that rain and wind was like to the bone, bitter cold. So it was a crazy game. But of course, I played defense. So you play in a mud bowl. It's like the funnest. It's like backyard football with your friends, right? The most fun football game I've ever played in. And of course, winning didn't hurt. So we won that national championship, and I had spoken to my friend before we played, and we're like, we're doing penguin slide right down the center of that field when we win this game. And sure enough, we win. We take off after we shake hands, and I just did that pose that you see in the picture. And there happened to be an Associated Press photographer that did not want to be there. He was not supposed to be there. He was mad that he was there, and he was freezing cold. And he was walking off the field, and he just turned and he saw me, and he just clicked, and his memory card said, "Jeep, full." He said, "Perfect. I'm done. Get me the hell out of here." Went back to his hotel, looked through his memory card and was like, "Oh, that's a cool picture. Let's see what happens." And Sports Illustrated picked it up, and um, the wild part of the story. I mean, it's all wild, but when I got home, it almost didn't happen because I never called the guy back because I thought that I was getting pranked. The chick, my friend worked at the P Center desk, and she called me the day after we got back. And, we're all hungover. We had been partying all night. Like, we just won the national championship, right? We were up all night. It was great. And she calls me and tells me that this guy from Sports Illustrated wants to talk to me. And I was like, okay, Tammy, you're silly. Like, no, you're not going to get me. We have a history, and I personally have a pretty long history with my teammates of pranking them. And so I was positive that somebody was just messing with me. I let it go. I didn't call him back. Next day, she calls me again. She's like, "Did you call that guy back?" I was like, "No, you were kidding. It's a joke." She's like, "No, he called again. You have to call him back." So begrudgingly, I'm like, "All right, I'll play along." I call this guy. We do an interview, and he seems so legit. And I'm like, "Man, this is an elaborate prank if he's really going into this." Give him this interview, and at the end he goes, "I don't know if your friend told you where we were thinking about putting this picture." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, some little blurb in the back, some tiny little things like, what's going on in the NAIA, huh? Did you even know it exists?" She's like, "Actually, we're thinking about putting it on the cover." And I'm like, "Okay, wow, you just blew your chance of getting me with this prank, right?" And she's like, or he, excuse me, the interviewer said, our deadline is tonight. This issue is going to come out tomorrow, Christmas Eve, but the editor has to make a final decision. So he'll let you know tonight. Just so you know, it's between you and Roger Clemens. All right, got it. Me and the Rocket. All right, we'll see how this goes. So again, I'm like, this is madness, right? So something around 10 p.m. that night, they had made their decision. The editor of Sports Illustrated calls me. He's like, "Mr. Day, I know they talked to you earlier. Thank you for giving that interview. We had been deliberating for a while. We're going back and forth, and we actually decided that we're going to go with your photo on the cover of this year's Year in Pictures edition." And the reason was because this was 2007, the end of 2007, when the Mitchell report came out. I don't know if you guys remember the Mitchell report. Senator Mitchell was the one that was investigating the steroid scandal in baseball. So Clemens was like forefront. Him, Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, those guys, Barry Bonds. He had to speak in front of Congress, and that's why he was going to be on the cover because it was like the Mitchell report was just being released. So the editor of Sports Illustrated was like, doesn't really sit with our values, right? This picture of you, this is like everything that Sports Illustrated is about. This is what sports is about. And if you look at the picture, like if you didn't know who I was, you wouldn't know this was who this was. You couldn't even tell. You could hardly, even if you know me, you can hardly recognize me, right? And I think that along with the super muddy jersey, you don't even know what team it is. The anonymity really adds to it. You know what I mean? Like this could be anybody from anywhere, and there's no crowd. You can't even see any crowd. Like the stands were here. There was a hole there, right? So you can't see a crowd. It's like what that picture says is we do it for the love of the game. That's it. We're not doing it for the money. We're not doing it for the accolades. We're not doing it for the NIL money, and the glory. We're just doing it because we just love playing football with our friends, and we like to play in the mud. And it could be anybody, and like sportsmanship and all that good stuff. He's like, that's exactly what we're about. We're choosing you. It's like, all right, let's see what happens now. So wild circumstances that all just aligned perfectly. Like one of those little pieces doesn't line up perfectly, then that doesn't happen. Which so it's
So
interesting.
how many issues did you buy? Because if it was me, I'd be buying every one I could to be handed them
Well,
out.
I didn't buy any. They sent me like 1,000.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, they sent me
It's like
a
going on my
few
marketplace,
just big
and I'm like,
boxes.
I don't know if I want
But
that.
I have
Not with
one
bed
left
sheets. It's like,
because they sent me a few posters too. Like
Yeah.
my parents have big posters in their houses and stuff like that. But I just like signed them and gave them away.
Yeah.
I don't need boxes of them laying around. Uh, the funniest thing was I was also on the cover of the phone book in Helena, Montana. And I swear to God, like I've signed more phone books than I have Sports Illustrated.
That's awesome. All right. Well,
Uh,
let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Uh, Tell us what applied neurology is, because I think let's start with that, because I think a lot of us we may have heard of the word neurology. We think of
yeah,
brain or nervous system, but I mean, I don't know about anybody else on on the call here, but I didn't know what it meant. I mean, and I still have to read it and kind of still get through my thick skull. But if you don't mind starting there, Brand, and then if you
sure.
get into like practical stuff to help us go, oh, I get it.
Yeah,
And just walk us through whatever you think we need to learn. Just a little bit of background about us. We're all men over 50. Every one of us has some kind of ache or pain. It's just a question of where it is and how is it a one, two, three, or a seven, eight, or nine? Depending on the
yeah,
day. And but it doesn't hold us back. We work around it. We find, we've talked about things like in different channels about things like PRP or peptides, a lot of the things that guys are looking for to avoid surgery. But I think what you have is something completely different that doesn't require getting cut or taking something. So anyway, yeah,
yeah.
if you want to start us off and just walk us down the path.
Wow. Did y'all see that enormous bee that just flew in
Yeah.
front of me? Oh my goodness. The size of a bird. Yeah, awesome. So I was the same way too, by the way. I got into all this because I've been dealing with chronic pain for 20 years. Playing football, living in Montana, hunting, fishing, dirt bikes. Like we lived a pretty extreme childhood, me and my brother and my family. So that led to a lot of head injuries and a lot of chronic pain. I played through pain my entire career, and I just kind of accepted that that's how life was, and that after football, I was going to be stuck with it. Um, but anyway, when I stumbled upon the applied neuro world, my chronic pain was gone within 2 months of learning the techniques and really learning what what it actually is and what's going on with the brain specifically. And that's kind of what applied neurology is taking neuroscience concepts and applying them to pain and performance. So the way that I like to describe it is the first describing like what actually is the function of your brain. It's like the most complex universe living inside your skull, right? With a trillion or more connections that can create things like artificial intelligence and do all this stuff. But really, fundamentally, what your brain is meant to do is one job and one job only, and that's to keep you alive. Survival is the only thing that matters when you strip away all of the other fancy stuff going on in the brain. Okay. So if we know that, and then we ask, like, how does it actually do that? Well, we call it the applied neurology loop. It's taking in inputs from your environment. That's your external environment. We call that exteroception, external perception, right? That's your five senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, hearing, all that. So the other way is through interoception. So what's going on inside my body, my internal perception, okay? We call those inputs. And your brain takes in all these inputs through the nervous system, and then it has to interpret those inputs, and then it'll give you an output. And that output is usually some kind of movement, maybe even a thought, maybe something to move you forward through your existence of being alive. So that's the loop: input, interpret, output. Now, if the interpretation of those inputs is perceived as threatening to your survival, then our outputs are going to be protective in nature. Okay, that could be things like we call them threat responses or protective outputs, but it's anything that is meant to help you survive in that moment. Let's say that you have an old injury on your knee, and when that injury happens, your brain goes, okay, ding, 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 this is now threatening to our survival. If we keep walking around on this knee that's all wobbly and busted up, we're going to fall and hit our head and die. That's not great. So what am I going to do? I'm going to tighten down that knee. Okay. I'm going to lock it up. I'm going to give you some pain so that you have to limp on it so you don't move so fast and make that thing worse, fall over and hit your head. Another example, like your inner ear or your eyes. If they are not processing the world properly, you have a vision problem, your eyes don't work well together, or you hit your head and you have an inner ear issue. Now your brain is not super sure what's going on in the world, and it's not really predictable. Like imagine you are in a new hotel you've never been in, and it's dark and you got to pee. How are you going to move around that room if you don't know where the lights are? Very slowly, right? That's because like your brain has not mapped this area. It doesn't know where the corner of that dresser is, right? Doesn't know exactly where the doors and walls are. So I'm going to walk super slow, okay, um, in order to find my way because the environment is threatening. And that's because you can't see. So your eyes play a big role here. But all the systems, all the input systems can create threat. And when we have threat that is perceived by the brain, we get protective outputs. Pain is just a protective output. So is anxiety. So is tension, stiffness. So is fatigue. Okay, all of these are protective mechanisms to get your body and brain into a place of safety. And this is fine and it works really well most of the time. But over time, we accumulate threats. The analogy we use is a threat bucket. So if your nervous system is like a threat bucket, it's taken in all of these things and they can build up over time. That old knee injury that you got cut on and that was never fully rehabilitated. You did your PT, but PT only goes so far, right? When we talk about the actual maps in the brain and stuff like that. So you're missing some rehab there. The scar that you got is probably still neurologically active. And your brain is like, hey, you literally cut me open and I got all this like collagen laid down and it's pulling in this weird way and I don't like it. So that can add threat. The bad sleep you had last night, that can add threat. The argument that you had 2 weeks ago with your significant other can add threat to your bucket, right? The food that you eat, the water that you drink or don't drink, right? All of these things can add threat to the bucket. Stress from work, anything. When the bucket gets full, if it overflows, then we get a full-on physiological fight or flight response. Like the animal backed into a corner, like ready to kill or like run away, right? That's super extreme. And it's rare that that happens. If that happens, we need to pause. We need to take a pause and do something. But before that happens, your bucket has got an overflow spout that's just going to be like off gassing, like just getting rid of some threat whenever it can. That's going to show up as pain, like chronic pain, especially. That's going to show up as like overwhelm, sensory overwhelm, anxiety is a big one. Even depression, even like fatigue. By the way, fatigue is a brain-derived emotion, right? The work of Timothy Noakes is really fascinating read on fatigue as an emotion. Another way to say that is fatigue is a threat response. It's a response from the brain saying, hey, if we keep going, something bad's going to happen. So you need to stop or slow down. Okay. So with applied neurology, if we understand how the brain works to keep us alive, we understand that all of these input systems affect this level of threat, then that means that anything can affect anything. So you got knee pain? Well, since we know that the nervous system affects everything and that pain is 100% of the time an output from your brain to keep you alive, to keep you safe, then we can use any of our tools in our applied neurology toolbox to affect that pain. All right. So then we can get into some of the tools that we use, like opposing joints. Like your left knee hurts, I can go to your right elbow and do some what we call proprioceptive mapping, which is just targeted movement to map this joint. And that will lower threat, but also communicate directly with that opposing joint because of how our spinal cord reflexes work, because of how we walk. And it can reduce pain 40 to 50% on average instantly because it sends safety signals to that area of your body back up to your brain that says, it's all good. Feel better. Force is moving differently through there. I feel more safe. Let's take the foot off the brake a little bit. Same knee pain. I can work with your breathing. Get you breathing better. Get you breathing more, like delivering more oxygen to your brain, balancing out your biochemistry, that kind of stuff can lower threat, can reduce pain. I can work on your eyes or especially your inner ear. When I get people with knee pain, a lot of times I'm thinking the inner ear. Is that those little gyroscopes that live behind your eyes called your vestibular system are always telling your brain, where am I at relative to gravity? Which way is up and which way am I going? If it's having trouble processing that, that's going to be a big, big issue when it comes to moving around the world safely, right? So another opportunity for me to lower some threat, balance some things out, and remove some pain. So applied neurology, in a nutshell, is the intentional and specific inputs to the nervous system in the brain in order to um, relieve pain or increase performance.
Hey, Brandon, quick question for you. So you said the five senses all
Yep.
play a role. We do a lot of identity work here, and so
Mhm.
a big part of what we do is we call future self. We like James Clear's work on identity. And when I went through my whole, I think I mentioned my bone on bone knee. One of the things I decided was I'm opting out of the sick care system. I'm not listening to orthopedics, and I just decided I'm the CEO of my health, and I'm going to become active. And I didn't know anything about applied neurology, but that plays into the getting rid of this danger in me concept, right?
Yeah,
Like, so the stories we tell ourselves can keep us in pain or help us get out of pain. And I don't know if that's part of what you want to talk
100%.
about today. Because I also think this proprioceptive mapping, the opposing joints, I mean, there's so many things here that are really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but I wonder if there's some if we ask some of the guys on the call if we got like I know Brian has plantar fasciitis. Would you mind if we just dove into a specific thing like that just
Sure.
to help make it real for guys? Brian, do you mind just like sharing a little bit about what you've done, where you're at right now, and then let Brandon react to it?
Yeah, I'd say it's been 8, 9 months now. I was playing a lot of pickleball, so I just think hard on court and, 2.5 hours straight. And then the pain just kept getting more and more, and I just kept doing it. And then, 2 weeks of limping for a couple days after, to the point of limping for literally a week or two
Okay.
around. And Yeah, I mean, I have the normal, get up in the morning, or even if I'm just sitting for an hour straight or 45 minutes straight, and I get up, I'm limping, across this office in a little bit, probably. Um,
Yeah.
Continued to train through it, continued to work through it, whatever. I did our live event in Arizona, etc. Um, but yeah, the pain's still there. I've been trying to, just not ignore it, but work through it.
Right. So let me ask you a couple questions, Brian. Is it on both sides or one side?
Mainly just the right side. I mean, I've got some minor discomfort on the left side, but right side.
Mainly right side, a little bit on both. Okay. Um, and does it get better after you kind of warm up a little bit?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then after you play for a while, does it then starts to kick up?
Yeah, I would say depending on the level. So if I'm a 5 mile ruck, let's say, doing a lot of hills, that strain on I'll start to feel it. It's really after, and it's usually not immediately after. Although I'll feel it after. It's an hour later, 2 hours later, and then
Okay.
the next couple days sometimes.
Okay. Plantar fasciitis is a great example. So there's a couple things that are going on neurologically that I often will think of. And by the way, my background is also in physical therapy. So my master's degree is in kinesiology. I worked in physical therapy for many years. So I have a very much a biomechanical, like traditional kind of foundation. And then I got into applied neuro, which, my opinion and my colleagues and the mentorship that I teach, we always say it's all backwards. We all need to be learning applied neuro and how the brain works first, but that's a soapbox for another day. But this thing that tends to show up like this, anything below the belt that shows up bilaterally on both sides, even if it's like more so on one side, a little less on the other, I immediately think brain because how likely is it that somebody has shin splints or plantar fasciitis that happens on both sides? Like for in a biomechanical model, it's like, well, you created these little micro tears and you got inflammation because you got a muscle imbalance in here and blah 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 blah. And while that is true, it's like, why do we have that? Why did that happen in the first place? And the answer you usually get is, well, because the structure is a little bit off, so it's creating like different muscles activating different way, and then over time that causes stress. It's like, well, why is the structure off? It's like, well, because they got a muscle imbalance here and it's pulling this bone over here. And it's like, well, but yeah, we already talked about that. Why? So it becomes this like circular reasoning, right? But if you actually peel back the layers more, you always run into the nervous system. The nervous system governs all the systems of the body. The muscle imbalance you have is because the nervous system's telling you to have a muscle imbalance. It's telling this muscle to activate more than this one, right? So with any kind of bilateral issue below the belt and even in the lower back, like if it goes all the way across, I'm always thinking like there's something higher order going on. Okay. So there is local tissue issue. With plantar fasciitis, you got some inflammation in there for sure, especially after like a long activity. You're building up some inflammation. Doesn't mean that you're um, like tearing the fascia and you're creating mechanical problems. I mean, maybe at a very micro level, if you are going for like a 5 mile ruck and you've gone from 0 to 5 miles, maybe, yeah, that's like a big jump. But if you've been training for a while and like if this is, not something totally new, it's doubtful that you're going to be creating that damage that quickly like that. So what's actually going on then? Okay, so there's a couple things we want to from in the applied neuro world. We would approach it. I would approach it. Not everybody. Like applied neuro is as broad as anything, right? It's a big umbrella. You've got. I work. I teach an applied neurology mentorship. Anybody that wants to come through and learn it for themselves. And we have students in there that are MDs, DOs, chiros, PTs. singing coaches, executive coaches, mindset coaches, and therapists, all the way down to just regular Joes that just want to learn it to make themselves better, right? So it runs the entire gamut. But my background is specifically in physical therapy and corrective exercise and sports training. So I would approach it from the bottom up and from the top down. Everything else that we've done traditionally is all below the neck training. That's what we call it. Okay. PT, chiro, it's all working with the body, working with the local tissue. And that's great. It has its place, but it falls short oftentimes. Because in a situation like this, what's going on above the neck is probably going to be more important. Brian, I would assume that you probably have a vestibular issue. That might show up in other ways. Like it could show up as balance issues occasionally, but not always. But it often shows up with like a chronic head tilt. Um, I don't know if you can see yourself in your camera right now, but you have a little bit of a right side head tilt. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Most people don't, right? Because it's just there, right? Um, but that's a vestibular issue. Your brain is thinking that I'm falling one direction, and so it's compensating by just, yeah, I'm just going to tilt my head this way to level it out. Okay. So that vestibular issue can show up in the lower body as something like plantar fasciitis, some kind of pain that is trying to tell you like, hey, I'm getting fatigued. I'm having a hard time processing the world at this speed that you're moving. So here's some pain to slow you down. Okay. Now, that's the top down. And there's another area of your brain that's probably worth looking at called your cerebellum, which processes vestibular input. It's all about accuracy, balance, and coordination of movement. Like any coordinated movement, cerebellum's got a big, big job there. Okay, so that's from the top down, but from the bottom up, you still got your basic tools like like how can we knock down the inflammation with nutrition and possibly with like modalities like compression or even NSAIDs, right? How do we keep that inflammation down and control the pain? Because one thing about neuro and your brain is that it gets better at exactly what it does. So if you allow it to continue to give you pain, then it will think that pain is a good messenger and it will continue to give you pain. Does that make sense? Like
Mhm.
when the groove gets greased, it wants to go back to that pathway over and over because it's efficient and it's fast and it will get the job done. And when you go looking for the pain or you just let it like fester there, it will give you more of it. So pain control is imperative during an injury or at any time. Um, so anyway, from the bottom up, we got the inflammation, with your nutrition and other modalities. And then you do have some muscle imbalances with plantar fasciitis that are certainly worth going after. And so without getting like super detailed, there is one muscle that always comes up, which is the tibialis posterior. It's the muscle like inside your leg that pulls the arch of your foot up. That muscle oftentimes is one of the weak links in a plantar fasciitis issue. And so in our PT world, we would just go hammer that muscle to death, like exercise the shit out of it, right? Towel scrunches, like arch pulls, all the cool corrective exercises. And those can be useful, but when we work with the brain and the neurology of it specifically, we got more options. So I can actually work with the peripheral nerves of your lower body. Your sciatic nerve branches off into a couple different nerves, one of which called the tibial nerve innervates that muscle. And if for whatever reason, maybe at your spinal level, that nerve is not getting good, clean, like activity where it can fire and turn on those muscles appropriately, then those muscles can get weak and just underactive, and that can lead to something like plantar fasciitis, where you're overworking other muscles and then straining the connective tissue. So we would approach it that way too. I want to strengthen that muscle. Yeah, I want to fix those muscle imbalances, But I want to fix what's going on up here first, because that's of paramount importance because it affects everything else. And then I also want to work at like from the spine level all the way down. Like what we have a specific kind of chain of events that can happen. If I think about that issue in his foot, how does the brain create that movement and how could it be involved in that issue? And we can walk ourselves up and down from the brain to the spinal cord to the peripheral nerve down to the muscles and the actual site of pain.
Hey, Brandon,
So,
quick, quick,
yeah,
quick question for you. Would you say, I don't know if this is a good metaphor, but is applied neurology kind of like the software and the traditional approaches are kind of like fixing the hardware?
that's a yeah, that's a decent way to think about it.
'Cause I think
Yeah.
we all think about, I mean, I'm just looking at a few of the guys on the call. I know like Brian Gobar has had back surgery. I know Tom, you were talking about an issue, and I see you have
Yep.
some on your hand too. So I don't know what's,
Yeah.
you know, and so,
Oh,
Too much
thanks.
phone.
or he's a professional bowler, one of the two.
Yeah,
Um,
there you go.
but it's, I think every guy's thinking like, hey, I got a question. How do I fix my, fill in the blank? Um,
Yeah.
and like with Brian, just stay on Brian just for a second, because I know I want to open up for Q&A. What are some examples of the above the neck stuff that you would work on with a guy like Brian to help address plantar fasciitis?
Yeah. Okay. Do you guys want to just do one together? You want to try it out?
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Okay. It's super simple. You don't even have to get up. Although we're gonna do a vestibular exercise. So there's a concept though that I really want to give to you guys because I say this to all my students. Like if you learned nothing in this year-long mentorship except for this one tool, then you will be far and above a better practitioner and you will do way more for your own pain and performance than any other modality you've ever learned. Okay. And it's just a simple assess and reassess process. So we want to assess the state of the nervous system in the moment, give it a new input, okay, and then reassess that same thing that we tested before. The nervous system like reacts instantaneously. So it can change in a moment, okay? And we're measuring your like overall level of threat. The bucket, if we give it a good input, the bucket lowers. Then we release. So we're going to test a range of motion or balance, okay? If you're testing balance, you just want to find a challenging but safe level, right? 2 feet down, 1 foot down, whatever. If you're testing a range of motion, you can pick any range of motion that gets a little sticky or stiff that you want to see changed. For example, I can just do a shoulder horizontal abduction like this, just out to the side, keep the elbow locked. You can see it stops right about here. It's a little sticky. You could do a neck range of motion, like a neck rotation. You could do a shoulder external or internal rotation. Okay. You could stand up and do a full body rotation if you want. Anything works. Does everybody have one?
Hmm.
Okay. Everybody's got one. You kind of do it a few times, check in, see where you're at, see if there's like a marker you can tell like how far you're going. Okay. We want to be as objective as possible. It's kind of impossible to do it completely objective with a range of motion because there's some cognitive override that can happen, but it's okay. So then let's do a vestibular drill um, to see if we can affect change. And I actually don't care if it gets better or worse. I just want you to see that it changes, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to look at a spot. It can be in the distance, it can be up close. I'm going to use the green dot on my camera as my target, okay? My eyes stay on the target, and all I'm going to do is take my head back and forth and shake it no, 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 like this. That target needs to stay clear and not double. And we're going to do about 10 back and forth at a nice smooth speed. Okay. And then you're just going to retest your range of motion. Okay. Mine clearly got better. I'm hitting myself in the ear now. So I know that my nervous system released the brake pedal a little bit. It's allowing me to move smoother, farther, more range of motion. That means my threat level has gone down. And my performance is now going to increase. Okay. All right. Did everybody test? How many people got a positive reassessment? The range of motion got better. Cool. I can only see a few of you, but I saw some hands go up. Nice. Anybody get worse? Got worse range of motion? Okay, cool. So the rest of you, it just didn't change. You didn't notice a change. Cool. When we don't notice a change, here's your reassessment process. Like that tool, the range of motion test or a balance test, that is probably the most important thing that you can learn about applied neurology, because you can apply that to everything that you do. When I work with somebody in the gym, when I work with my athletes, like in our strength training stuff, like we're doing barbell squats, we're doing like sprints, stuff like that, I will have them reassess their range of motion or their balance or whatever it is they want to improve after every set of every exercise. When we do that, we're not guessing anymore. Like when I give Brian, who he jumped off, when I give him the little toe scrunches, I'm going to test his range of motion. If I do 10 and it gets worse, we did too much. We actually increased threat in his system. And so his range of motion got worse. His brain went, nope, I don't like it. Okay. The dosage was too high. So the next set, I might do 8 reps. Okay. And his reassessment gets better. All right, perfect. Now we got the dosage dialed in. I want you to take that home and do that. So we say that if it gets better, if your reassessment gets better, good, keep going. You're on the right path. If it gets worse, dial in the dosage. You probably need to dial it back a little bit because you've created some threat. If it doesn't change at all, that just means that the nervous system had no reason to pay attention. So you probably need more stimulus to actually get it to go, oh, okay, I see what we're doing. We need to change here. I need to adapt. So if you can use that process and remember those 3 rules, you can dial in the dosage of any input in your world. And remember, everything is an input. So opens the doors for a lot of opportunity. Here's another silly example. People often ask me, what kind of shoes should I wear? Should I get the wide toe box? Do I need to have the flexible, midfoot? Like, do I need some steel-toed boots? What should I buy? I often just say, just go to the store and use your reassessment as your guide. Go to the store, walk around the store, do your reassessment without your shoes on. Put the shoes on that you think you want to buy, walk around the store, do your reassessment. Did it get better? Okay. Your nervous system and your brain like those shoes. Did it get worse? Try something else. It will tell you. It will tell you. So if you learn that and nothing else, you're going to be good. We just did one vestibular drill called a VOR. It's a reflex that keeps your eyes locked on a target. Like, I don't have to tell my eyes to move to stay on this target. That's a hardwired reflex. And we just did a very basic general version of it, right? But there's all these different canals that we can go in and very precisely diagnose which one is a little bit off balance and needs training. And then we just go in there with this assessment process. We figure out the dosage that you need and we start to train it just like a muscle. Neurotraining is the same principle of strength and conditioning or endurance training. It's progressive overload, if you guys know that term. We have to create stress on the system in order for the system to adapt and come back stronger and more resilient. We're just getting way more precise with the areas of the body and the movements. And then we're adding in all these other neurological systems that are informing the brain about where I'm at in my environment, what's coming next, right? And helping you build a more holistic and like more balanced and, we often talk about like this idea of these maps in your brain, maps of your body, maps of your space. And we're filling in those maps with great detail instead of these just blurry, like mishmashes. Like we're going in with great precision and detail to fill in each of those maps with these different inputs.
Well, let's open it up for questions. Mr. O'Malley.
Yeah, Brandon, you mentioned earlier the sciatic nerve and how it plays into it. I'm hoping and I assume that you have techniques also to address the actual nerve, herniation, sciatica, all
Yep.
that comes from that.
Yeah, 100%. So, um, y'all ever heard of nerve flossing?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's kind of like, how you floss your teeth. You can do that with a nerve too. Oftentimes with sciatic or neurogenic pain, the radiculopathy, it's called in the clinic, but it's like the shooting electric pain goes down the back of your leg or on the side or on the front. Depending on where it is, that's a different branch of the sciatic nerve, right? And depending on how it presents, we can get very precise on what specific nerve needs to be mobilized. And then we just like position your body and your back in a way to give the nerve some slack. And then we kind of glide it in between the tissues. That usually happens because the nerve's getting stuck somewhere. Now, if it's at the spinal cord level and you have a disc herniation, um, yes, we can work with that. Very rarely, it's so bad that all the movement and positioning in the world is not going to help you and you need to have surgery. However, in my experience, that is the exception, the wildly rare exception that that's actually necessary. Um, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a guy named Joe Dispenza,
Mhm.
the man. His story about healing his own spine is it's it's a little different than the applied neuro world because he was using meditation and manifestation and like that's what goes back more to Scott's talk earlier about identity and beliefs work and stuff like that. However, my point is that that's possible. There's stories everywhere, and herniations can reabsorb into the disc. That's been proven over and over again. It's just can we create the conditions in the body and the brain that allow for that to happen? So there's that part at the spinal level and that, but we can absolutely work with those nerves very precisely to get them moving better and open that up and get rid of that pain. Yeah.
Hey, Brandon, what's a good way for guys to get started? Is it your school course that you have, or because my guess is
Yeah,
this I don't know, you guys tell me. I think there might be a little bit of like intrigue, but also even maybe more confusion because it's like it's part of learning is you have to unlearn what you think is right in order to make room for the new stuff. And so if somebody's
sure.
got chronic injury and they've been told surgery, for usually it's cortisone shots and then surgery is what the sick care
Yeah,
system typically is recommending. Um, Talk a little bit about, working with you, school course, if they're not in the Phoenix area, how that works.
sure. Yeah, so I do have a free school community. And in there it's just called the Relief Switch, which is just like a short, 10-minute, a few little videos, kind of walking you through the process that we just did briefly a minute ago, which is just like, here's your assessment. Here's a few things that you can try that are kind of high payoffs. Like there's a breathing drill, there's another vestibular drill. I think there's a vision drill in there. And it's kind of meant to just kind of prove the concept that your nervous system can change instantly. Some people will actually get some pain relief from those. Um, maybe not. But the point is to just prove that it works. And then I have a 21-day course. It's $200 and it goes through the top neuro drills. It's like a 10 to 15 minute video each day that will walk you through like all of my top tools. And you can build yourself a really solid neurotraining program through that process if you want. Of course, I work one-on-one with guys too. But those are really easy entry places to start and just test it, like, and see, like, okay, see it make change, and you can kind of get the proof of concept. Um, and then in the community, obviously, you can ask any questions, and um, you can get tons of information that way, things to try and things like that. But at a very like fundamental level, like for anybody that's like feeling a little more confused than when we started, my bad. It's hard sometimes to convey these topics um, that it can be they're somewhat complex, but really when we talk about the very fundamental thing that the brain does, it's very simple. And if we can understand that applied neuro loop, inputs, interpretations, outputs, it applies to everything going on in your body. The real tricky thing is, like Scott said, it's kind of the rewiring, or the like the rewiring of the beliefs that we've been just conditioned to hold through our entire lives, which is that like pain equals damage, or that it's just like some of the most damaging beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves as we start to get older is that it's just a part of aging, or that everybody my age has pain, so I should have pain too. Or that, like, oh, I do have this bone on bone knee, therefore I'm just going to have to live with pain. Like Scott's a perfect example of that's just not true, right? It's just not true. Like your brain decides if it's going to give you pain. Jeff, I saw your hand up. Do you have a question, my friend?
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Question for you. When you've got a full-blown injury, you twist your ankle and you saw it go sideways on you and it's starting to swell up
Yeah.
and you got a lot of pain, associated with that. Um, are there ways, or I assume there's ways to apply this technique to maybe lessen the pain that that's causing to help it heal better, quicker, something
Hmm.
like that? I mean, how does it work with, I mean, full-blown known, you
Yeah.
know, injuries?
Yeah. Yeah. So apply all the applied neurology in the world, all the vision drills is not going to heal your broken leg, right? You might need some Western medicine for that. And Western medicine is beautiful for that. Life-saving, awesome stuff. But to your example with the broken ankle, this is often a quick
Or
story that I give.
even just a sprained ankle, where it's just
Yeah.
really sore, but it just needs to heal up quick. Can you loosen that, or can you use these technologies to kind of lessen the pain that it's given you
Hmm.
to help you heal
Yeah,
quicker?
you can. And it's often an example I give when I talk about pain and how pain is optional. Um, Imagine you're walking in the woods and you hear a huge growl from not very far away. Sounds like a bear. That's not great for my survival. So I need to get out of there. So you start to run away, but you turn and you trip on a tree root and you break your ankle. Full break, like snapped in half. It's flopping there. It's trouble, right? You would think that pain would come very quickly after that. However, the brain's only job is survival. So in that moment, is excruciating pain and not being able to walk on that ankle going to be very good for your survival? No, it's not, right? If you don't get out of there, you're going to be bare lunch. So the brain in that moment will inhibit all pain and you will run out of those woods. You will get back to your pickup and your heart rate will start to come down, might take a couple hours, but then you're going to have incredible pain. It's going to be hard to get rid of that pain for a moment because you're going to have a ton of inflammation and you're going to have so much more damage in the tissues around that ankle because the pain was not there to protect you. But in that moment, you're alive. So it's all good, right? So what I'm saying is that even in a moment like that, pain is optional. Your brain has the mechanism to inhibit all of that pain from getting to your cortex in order for you to survive. So we can leverage that a little bit, right? Like, I'm not going to put a bear in front of you in order for you to get rid of that pain. That's not really feasible. But we can go into little areas of the brain, and if I can activate this area in your midbrain called the periaqueductal gray, that's what controls that. So I can, yeah. If we can activate that properly through some vision drills, through some other areas that actually interact with that area, this is the beauty of neurotraining and getting into the brain, right? I know this area does that, and I know these vision drills, this specific visual movement, I'm doing this because it's a vertical saccade, getting your eyes moving like that, can actually activate that area and can, in that moment, start to reduce pain. And then we can apply the other therapeutic tools that will help to quicken that process as well, right? To remove the inflammation, to get things moving and remapping that area, like all those tools that everybody has been using forever. But we can leverage the brain to help that process tremendously.
Hey, Brandon, you mentioned the threat bucket, and this reminds me, I was meeting with a woman we go to for, she's helped us with ozone and prolozone and PRP and things like that. And she was asking me about my knee. And she went back to like, well, when did it start hurting? I told her the dates, and then she asked all these questions that to me had nothing to do with it. Like, what was your what were you doing for work? Well, we had a business and went through a sale and they didn't buy my division. So I was, I got cashed out, but I was, like free agent. And then she kept asking these questions. I'm going, what does this matter? She's like, all those things are stressors that you don't
Yeah.
think had an impact. And so when you said all the things that go into the threat bucket, beyond like you twisted your ankle or your knee or whatever, are you stressed out about life? What's your marriage like? What's the stock market like? You've got a kid with some issues. All that goes into that threat bucket.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and I think that's a really interesting part of this because I think it's easy to discount all that stuff and just go point to the place that hurts and go, I think I'll just rub it or put a lacrosse ball on it or whatever it is, ice it. Um, so I think I mean, that to me is a really deep vein to tap into is like how we think. And that gets into some of the Dispenza stuff. I always ask guys like, well, have you decided to get better? Have you decided to get to 15% body fat? Well, if you haven't made that decision, well, how
Yeah.
the hell are you going to get there? So there's a little bit of this, that sounds mumbo jumbo-y, but I don't, and now you're telling me there's actually science behind it.
There is 100%. And, mystical traditions and, manifestation practices, whatever you want to call them, they've known about this for thousands of years. But the neurology of belief is really interesting. And the real quick version is like your brain is a prediction machine. It conserves energy by shortcutting things and predicting what's coming next. This is where we get biases. They're important because they allow us to conserve energy and shortcut all the things that we need to think about in every situation. That's too energy consuming and time consuming. So beliefs work that way. And when you decide something and you instill a belief, on the negative side, it could be that I'm just getting old, and that pain is a part of aging. If you believe that, then you're going to be in pain because your brain is going to seek out evidence that makes that belief true
Hmm.
because it's always trying to predict what's coming next. And if it can predict things, then it feels safe in its environment. So being in pain in this story is safe for you because you believe that that's what you should have.
Yeah.
So if we can shift the belief, it's a tremendous threat reduction, and your brain starts to make it true, seeking out evidence everywhere in your environment that makes that belief true.
Yeah, this is awesome. Well, hey, tell us how and I'll put all this in the notes, how to contact you, how to reach
Sure.
you, follow you, etc.
Yeah, so you can join my free Skool community if you want to jump right in there and look at that relief switch and that stuff. You can also, if you're on Instagram, you can hit me up at I am Brandon Day, just one word. I spend most of my time on Instagram or in Skool. Um, And I could put I'll put my email and my personal phone number on here too. If you guys want to reach out to me directly, like feel free to do that. Um, any way you want to contact me with questions or anything else, please feel free.
Yeah, if you don't mind
I'm here to serve
following
you guys.
with that, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Any one last question for anybody? Comment, anything? Dr. Todd, would this help in the dental office for having a tooth removed?
We have a dentist in our mentorship right now.
Yeah.
The cranial nerves, man, they are powerful, powerful, especially the trigeminal nerve. I actually had a story about a guy that had 7, 8 out of 10 sciatic pain. Our first session had to be on the floor. He could not walk. Our second session, he was up on his feet. He told me he had a root canal that got infected a few months ago. I had him get his electric toothbrush and just rub around the gums around that root canal. His pain dropped to a 2. So the mouth is a dense neurological playground. Everything affects everything.
Yep. No
Yeah.
kidding. All right. Well, thanks, Brandon. This has been super helpful. I appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing your time and the stories. And guys, I'll get this all published on Skool. And thanks for tuning in today. And any last things, Brandon, before we sign off?
Nothing, man. No, this was a pleasure. Really enjoyed being here. Thanks for having me. Great to meet you guys and to share a little bit of my journey.
Yeah, we'll appreciate it. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Thanks a lot. Brandon, I'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
Brad.
Thanks.
Okay.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
See you guys.